Outside an underwater cave off the California coast, two divers unfurled a tough, wiry net. A few moments later, a third diver emerged from the cave. Before he knew what was going on, he was deliberately enmeshed in the net. He wasn't released from it till he was dead. I didn't know the divers, and nobody knew what had happened. But I was on active duty with the Coast Guard at that time. I'm a member of the Coast Guard Auxiliary. And the death resulted in my being summoned to a handsome beach house a few days later. As I walked to the house, I had no idea that I was even then inviting my own murder. Commander Steve Barnes of the Coast Guard was waiting for me at the beach house.
Mike, did you ever hear of Dr. James Calvin?
James Calvin? Oh?
He was quite a guy. He served with my dad during the war in Chemical Warfare Division. Afterwards, he became research director for one of our big chemical companies.
Oh, that does sound like quite a guy.
About a year ago, he retired and he built this house.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Two weeks ago, his body was found floating in the ocean about a half a mile from here.
Oh.
The autopsy indicated accidental drowning, but I just can't go along with it.
Why not?
Well, for one thing, he was a fine swimmer, an expert diver.
Happens to the best of us, you know.
He was wearing a wetsuit when they found him. No scuba equipment.
Could have been just skin diving.
Well, there's another thing. His daughter arrived yesterday just in time for the funeral. She's in the lab now going through her father's things. She told me something that tends to back up what I believe. I want you to listen to her and give me your opinion.
Okay.
And don't say anything about my suspicions. She's having a rough enough time the way it is.
I understand.
Patricia. Patricia? Mike Nelson is here. He's commander of the Coast Guard underwater flotilla and an expert scuba diver. Now, do you want to talk to him, or would you rather I explain things?
I'll be all right.
You sure? Tricia, this is Mike Nelson. Mike, Tricia Calvin. Tricia, I wish you'd read Mike that section of the letter that you read me yesterday.
Dad wrote me some time ago. He was working on a Project B. He was very mysterious about it, but last week he wrote me this letter. I have finally found what I've been looking for to perfect Project B. It only holds out for a few minutes, but then the first flight of an airplane only lasted 59 seconds. To keep away from prying eyes, I've fitted up an underwater lab that will be peak-proof, and I'll make my final test there. When you come to visit, I may have good news for you.
That's your cue, Mike. I want you to try and find that underwater lab.
Tell me, did you find anything in the lab here that might give us an idea, you know, a clue of some sort?
Just a lot of plans and drawings I don't understand.
May we see them?
Of course. He's apparently been working with various gases, both active and inert.
Well, you know about these things, huh?
I'm a chemist myself.
Oh, here's something I understand. A rebreather.
What's a rebreather?
Oh, you know what happens when you breathe from a tank underwater.
Well, I couldn't explain it technically.
You inhale compressed air, mostly nitrogen and oxygen. Your body uses up the oxygen and exhales nitrogen and carbon dioxide.
Oh, that's very good. Now, with a rebreather, something is used to absorb the carbon dioxide and to recirculate the nitrogen.
But you have to add oxygen.
Where's that come from?
A diver carries a tank of pure oxygen. Unless...
Unless what?
Unless a person could find a way to extract the oxygen from the water. Looks like that's what your father was working on. A few days later, with the aid of the drawings and the help of Patricia, who turned out to be a right smart gal, I managed to assemble a duplicate of Dr. Calvin's Project B. It looked good, and it looked practical. But there was one thing that puzzled us both. A circular opening threaded on the inside. Something besides the cap was supposed to screw in there. What? This was the only point in which the plans were vague. Meantime, I had hooked up a CO2 absorbent of the kind used before on rebreathers. The rest of the device resembled a regular rebreather, with one big exception. There was no oxygen bottle. There were 2 electrodes leading to batteries. They were obviously designed to produce oxygen from the surrounding water by electrolysis. It was more like a fish's gill than a rebreather. The problem was power. Electrolysis uses a lot. I'm going to take this down the ocean.
I'll go with you.
All right, come along. Along with her other accomplishments, Patricia was a first-rate diver. That came in handy. She could observe what happened on the outside of the gill. I breathed from the gill. It worked better than I expected. I wasn't getting quite enough oxygen, but I was breathing all right. Then I got into trouble. The oxygen stopped flowing. I signaled for help. Patricia gave me air. We buddy breathed on the way up.
Well, it worked fine for a minute. It needs more power. And even if we do use more powerful batteries, we still won't be able to perfect it until we find out what the missing part's supposed to be.
How do we go about that?
I think it's about time that I start looking for that underwater lab that your dad mentioned in his letter.
Good idea.
So, while I'm down looking for the underwater lab, why don't you go home, huh, and take a look around the lab there. Something missing from this device. We won't know much until we find it.
No.
Okay.
I hoped the underwater lab might give some clues to the missing part of the gill. There was only one hitch. First, I had to find the lab.
Hello, are you Patricia Calvin?
Yes.
I'm your neighbor from up on the hill. I'm Martha Loring.
Oh, Mrs. Loring. Oh, yes, Dad wrote me about you. Oh, please, come in. Please, come in and sit down, Mrs. Loring.
My dear, I can't begin to tell you how shocked I was when I heard about Dr. Calvin's death. We had become quite good friends.
Dad told me about you.
His sudden passing was a great tragedy.
A tragedy. And a mystery.
A mystery?
Oh, they tried to keep it from me for a while, but I finally found out that they think Dad's death wasn't an accident.
They?
Mr. Nelson and Commander Barnes of the Coast Guard. You see, Dad was working on a special device of some kind when he was drowned. And we're trying to find out exactly what it was.
Oh, my dear, that's a frightful thought.
Did Dad ever mention anything to you about a Project B?
No, he never mentioned his work.
Well, we think we have it pretty well figured out.
When you say we, do you mean Commander Barnes?
Oh, no, Mr. Nelson. He's here helping me.
I see. My dear, I think you're wonderful to be so brave and calm under such a tragedy. I'm sorry I can't stay longer, but let's get together soon for a real good chat.
Oh, I hope we can. I appreciate all you've done for Dad, and, well, I'd like to find some way to express it.
When I saw the cave entrance, I was sure that I had found Dr. Calvin's underwater laboratory. The flare showed me the inside of the cave. When I found the light, I knew that I was in the lab. This was quite a setup, 75 feet below the surface. No wonder Dr. Calvin had called it peak-proof. I saw nothing to verify Commander Barnes's theory about Dr. Calvin's death, and I had found nothing that might help me complete his underwater breathing device. Suddenly, I looked to the roof of the cave. There, wired to a hunk of buoyant plastic, was what I'd been looking for. As I examined it, I became more and more certain that this was the missing part of the gill.
Well?
It wasn't as slick a job as you think. And they suspect Calvin was murdered. And they know he was working on an important project before he died.
They know what it was. They've duplicated it. We watched them testing it earlier today.
No? What do we do now?
Look! He must have found the cave. He has the container.
We searched that cave from top to bottom.
He found it and we didn't.
What next?
Sit tight, keep our eyes open. Still don't know what Calvin was using for a catalyst. If they figure that one out, we're going to need that net again.
One end of the problem was sealed up. The container I found in the cave fit the gill perfectly. But as far as I was concerned, the other end was wide open. What was the container for?
Mike, as I watched you in the water this morning, I noticed this was the escape hatch for the hydrogen, freed by electrolysis.
Yeah?
And it made bubbles as it escaped from the gill.
Yeah, the hydrogen has to pass through this container, and the container wouldn't be there if there wasn't something important supposed to be in it. Something different from a CO2 absorbent.
Mike, you know what a catalyst is. A chemical that causes other chemicals to react to each other. This must be intended to hold a catalyst. So that when you breathe out carbon dioxide and the gill gives off hydrogen, it converts it into a compound that's washed away in the water.
And there wouldn't be any bubbles.
No, no bubbles.
Oh, with something like this, a scuba diver would be able to remain underwater indefinitely and undetected.
That must be the essence of Dad's idea.
Well, now the big problem is what did he use for a catalyst?
Let's go on and search some more. Mike, look what I found in the jar marked sodium chloride.
Sodium chloride. Oh, that's the strangest looking table salt I've ever seen.
It's green and flaky.
Ah. What do you suppose it is?
Oh, I couldn't tell without analysis. But this could be Dad's catalyst.
Let's find out. Put some in a container and we'll test it in the tank, huh? I blew through the tube. The container with the green stuff in it was hooked up to a hydrogen bottle. And we were right. Not a bubble emerged, no matter how hard I blew. The chemical reaction evidently converted the hydrogen and carbon dioxide into a soluble organic salt, which dissolved in the water. This was, no question, Dr. Calvin's catalyst. I decided to take the Gill to the underwater lab, where I could test it now in comfort and with facilities to make any necessary adjustments.
There's no mistake. He's got it now. It's over his shoulder. He's taking it into the water. Get the net. I'll be with you in a minute.
Right.
Watch the girl. Under no circumstance let her interfere, even if it means being seen.
I could understand now why somebody had wanted Dr. Calvin dead. From a military standpoint, the value of this device could be enormous. A whole army of swimmers could approach a coastline without a single bubble to reveal their presence. Too late, I realized what a mistake I'd made in not being more alert. Now I knew what had happened to Dr. Calvin. He had been trapped just as I was and held in the net till he drowned. It looked like I was in for the same fate, and for the same reason, to get hold of the Gill.
It's a lovely afternoon. I thought I'd drop by for a chat.
Well, you'll have to excuse me, Mrs. Loring. I'm a little worried about Mr. Nelson. I want to get on my wetsuit and call the Coast Guard. Will you excuse me?
Put down the phone, Miss Calvin. I'm sorry, but if you try to use that phone, I'll shoot. Put it down.
I don't understand, Mrs. Loring. I was only thinking of Mike. He's been down there so long.
So far, they'd made no attempt to deprive me of what little air was left in my tank. I had some flares in my belt. But if I made a move for them, I knew what would happen. Time was running out. If I didn't make some move soon, I'd drown. If they caught Patricia before I could get free of the net, we'd both be finished. But I had swum alongside Patricia, and I knew that she'd take considerable catching.
Trapped down below.
Him! Holding you! All right, come on up out of there.
I gotta go back. Mike is down there, trapped in a net.
Is that all of them?
That's all of them.
Did you get Mrs. Loring?
The woman in the house?
Yes.
Yeah, we got her. Say, Patricia, who taught you how to tie a knot?
Fella I know, in the Coast Guard.
I thought so. Took two of us to get her untied.
I guess we know the truth now about Dad's death.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. The only consolation, I guess, is that he gave his life to save others. Maybe thousands of others. Hi, I'm Lloyd Bridges, inviting you to join us for another action-packed story of underwater adventure 1 week from today.
They say on his day off, a postman usually goes for a walk, and a sailor heads for the nearest lake for a happy hour of rowing. My name is Mike Nelson. I'm a professional diver. Day off, what could be more natural for me than to go swimming? Of course, there's some things that make swimming more attractive at one time than at another. At this particular moment, and in this particular place, all seemed right with the world. But in another part of the city, it was a different story. The burglar alarm at the jewelry store automatically alerted the police. In a few seconds, all available units were converging on the area, while a desperate boy looked frantically for some means of escape. And the escape that he selected, a storm drain, put both of us in a very tight spot.
All right, you. Start climbing up that ladder. And keep those hands so I can see them. Now look, mister. That's a storm drain you're in. You can come out and surrender or drown. Take your choice. Two M27 at headquarters.
Headquarters by?
We've got a robbery suspect trapped in a storm drain on Park near Willoughby. Better check and see where this drain goes. See sort of a chance of him getting out somewhere along the line.
10-4.
A few minutes later, I received an emergency call from my old friend Cy Baker, Superintendent of Public Works. Cy knows everything there is to know about the city storm drains, and he knew that the young fugitive was in more than one kind of trouble. A police car rushed me to another opening in the storm drain. It was the last opening before the ocean. When a man's life is at stake, it's up to everyone to do what he can to help, whether the man is a minister of the gospel or a fugitive from justice.
I brought this map along to give you a clear picture of what goes.
Good.
Now, this main black line here is the storm drain from the mountains to the ocean. And this point here is where the suspect went in. It's a mile east of here. We call it storm drain exit number 2.
I'm with you.
Now, this is the point where we are right here.
I see.
This is storm drain exit number 3.
Well, what makes you think he went this way? Is there an exit in the other direction, too?
A policeman followed him down the manhole and saw him start in this direction. They've been watching it ever since.
I see. What's the water situation between these two exits?
Where he went in, it's 2 to 3 feet deep. Now, in between these two exits, there are these 2 auxiliary tunnels. They're secondary drains, but this time of year, the water runs pretty high, especially after last week's storms. The water in the whole system's going up.
I see. You mean if he doesn't go back to this exit that he went down, he runs the risk of being drowned, huh?
That's right. Even if he stays put, he's liable to drown, the way the water's going up.
Well, what do you want me to do?
Well, as I see it, the only thing you can do is to go in here and work your way back toward exit number 2.
What if he's already past this point here?
Nothing anybody can do. From here on down, it's a raging torrent to the ocean. I don't see how any man could live, even with diving equipment.
Well, we'll soon find out. I don't know what the current's like down there. It might be pretty fast. But if I go down the other exit, exit number 2, the one the fellow went down, I might frighten him into deeper water.
That's right. Might be tough to catch up with him before he passes this point, too.
Well, I'll see you later, boy.
They might. Remember one thing. This fellow just tried a stick-up. He may be armed.
Thanks. Throw me down my fins. It was a tough current, like pushing your way up a swift river. I began to doubt if I could get far enough on one tank of air. It was hard to tell how much progress I'd made in the tunnel. The current seemed to be pushing me back as fast as my swimming was carrying me forward. I was sure that I would have to go much farther before I'd get out of the strong current. I was using too much time. I'd never make it without more air. There was only one thing to do. Go back up exit number 3 and try to reach him from exit number 2 with fresh air tanks. I couldn't understand how the fugitive had escaped being swept down toward number 3 exit, unless he'd already been carried past it. If so, no one could do anything for him. I couldn't make any headway. Here. I better try the other exit. Exit number 2.
You said yourself you might scare him into deeper water.
Yeah. Well, that drain is filled up to the top now. A man will never be able to get here without a tank in his back. Now, when I get to the other exit number 2, if I get to him and if he's still alive, I'll have to take him up the other exit. We'd never be able to manage to get to this one together.
Mr. Baker here?
I'm Baker.
And you're Mike Nelson.
That's right.
This young lady is Mrs. Carolyn Tucker. Her husband's name is Warren.
Warren!
He's the kid who's down on that storm drain.
Warren! Warren!
I'd assumed that the man in the storm drain was an adult, so I was quite surprised when I saw his wife, a kid, who couldn't have been more than 17. I wondered if he was any older.
Gotta get him out of there alive. I know we can work things out somehow. If only we can get Warren out of there alive.
I'm going to try another exit. I'll swim with the current, you understand? I can get him that way. Come on, let's go.
Can I come?
What do you say?
Yeah, bring her along. You come with me.
When you find him, tell him I'm waiting for him. I'll wait for him forever. No matter what he's done. Oh, if you could only understand.
I understand. You love him.
Oh, yes, I do, Mr. Nelson. I'd do anything. He's never done anything like this before. He was desperate.
I'll do my best. Throw those down, huh?
Might take him quite a while, Mrs. Tucker. I think you'd be more comfortable waiting in the car.
I want to be ready to do anything I can to help.
You come on now. You don't look so good. You better sit down and relax.
How is she?
Oh, she's all right, I guess. How about that? Just a couple of kids. Look at the mess they're in.
How'd you find out she was his wife?
Well, he'd been missing since yesterday. She came down to the police station to report it. And the description fit that of the kid who'd made the holdup attempt.
See.
He had his picture with her. We sent it over to the jewelry store. 3 witnesses identified him without hesitation.
Did you say hold-up attempt?
Yeah, he didn't get a thing. He walked up to the counter and pushed across a note that said, I've got a gun. Give me $100 or I'll shoot. Well, the clerk hit the alarm and dropped down out of sight, and the kid ran off.
Did he have a gun?
Well, if he did, he didn't use it. No one saw a gun.
The water kept getting higher. There was still no sign of Warren Tucker. I kept thinking about his wife, hardly more than a child. It was heartbreaking.
can't stay in that car. I just can't.
Mrs. Tucker, you told Mr. Nelson your husband had never been mixed up in anything like this before. What happened this time?
I guess it's because of the mess we're in.
What kind of a mess?
We had a pretty rough time this past year. When we were married, Warren was 17 and I was 16. We were both in high school, and his parents objected. So did mine.
So you got married anyway?
We were in love with each other. We wanted to be together.
You ran into trouble.
Trouble? I'll say. We had to quit school. Neither of our parents would help us. So we pulled up stakes and we came out here. But Warren couldn't find a full-time job. Pretty soon we found out I was going to have a baby. And we didn't have any money. We were actually hungry.
Mrs. Tucker, in this day and age, it isn't necessary for anyone to go hungry.
Warren was too proud to accept charity.
But not too proud to try a hold-up, huh?
Well, I guess he just got desperate.
Mr. Tucker, it isn't right for any man to solve his problems by robbing another man.
Well, I know, but he doesn't deserve to die for what he's done. And I heard the policemen talking, and they don't think he's going to get out of that storm drain alive.
I felt a new pull on the water. It seemed to indicate that I was getting close to one of the secondary drains. Then I saw him, holding to a slim projection from the roof of the tunnel, managing to keep his head above water.
Get away from me, you! Pull it back!
Warren, I've come down here to help you.
I don't want any help. I want to die.
There's a pretty girl waiting up top for you, your wife. She wants me to tell you that no matter what you've done or why you did it, she'll always be waiting for you.
I had to do it. There's no other way.
You're lucky that you've got somebody that loves you like that.
Don't come any closer. I can't go back. I can't.
You're not going to be able to hold on much longer. It's getting too deep, too fast. You're going to be swept out to sea. I won't be able to save you.
I don't want to be saved.
Think of somebody else besides yourself. Your wife.
She'll go back to her family. They'll take care of her.
Yeah, but she won't have her husband, the guy she loves.
I just couldn't stand prison. God, I just couldn't stand it. I'd never be able to face it. Never, never. I'm gonna get out of this mess. I'm gonna let go.
Go ahead. What are you waiting for?
I can't. God help me. I can't. I'm afraid to. I'm afraid to let go. Afraid not to. What am I gonna do?
Listen. The water's gonna be over our heads in a few minutes. Did you ever use one of these? No. Well, you're gonna have to use one now. You want to get out of here alive. I only have one tank. So we're gonna have to share it. You get your air through this mouthpiece. You're gonna have to do what you call bunny breathing. We'll pass this back and forth. Now, this is the way it works. You have to blow on it hard before you take in your breath of air. Blow like this, hard. That gets rid of the water in the hose. And you take your breath of air from this, and I'll hold my breath while you're doing it. And then I'll take it from you. I'll take my breath of air from it. You hold yours. You understand?
It's been so long. So long. Oh, please. Isn't there anything else we can do?
Up here, not a thing.
All right, now let's try it. Here we go, huh? I'll be with you all the time, right next to you. Here we go.
Water's getting higher every minute.
Is there any way you can block it off?
No, there isn't. there had been, I'd have had it done a long time ago.
What can we do?
Nothing. Just a round, fat nothing.
The water had already risen over our heads. Making time against this current and under these conditions was like swimming against a tidal wave. How far were we from the drain exit, or even from shallow water? I didn't know, and what's more, I didn't want to think about it. Warren had been getting more and more reluctant to release the mouthpiece. I knew if he panicked, he'd start breathing water and drown, so I took the mouthpiece as little as possible. Close to the opening now, but the situation was getting out of control. Our buddy breathing was using up the air fast. I knew that it was getting low, and having to fight him for every breath was using up precious time and energy.
Here they come. Took you long enough.
I never like to rush things.
I'm sorry.
May I?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Mister, I want to...
You can thank me by taking good care of your wife and child.
I'll try. I mean it. I'll really try.
I know you will. What do you think they'll do with him?
It's hard telling.
He did give himself up, you know.
Well, it should make some difference.
Got a lot of guts, that kid. The way he swam in the water against the current. A kid like that shouldn't get into the kind of trouble he did. I'll bet he wouldn't if he had somebody to guide him.
I know just the guy.
Oh.
You. You could talk the judge into putting him on probation.
Me?
Yes, you.
Pretty clever, aren't you? Okay, I will. Come on, Bob. Hello there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. You know, 3/5 of the world is covered by the sea. And how little most of us know about that underwater world. Go below with us again next week, huh? For another thrilling adventure in Sea Hunt.